please. If you look back behind my stove, they come in 6 times to get rid of the mold.
For 62-year-old Debbie Eldridge, the summer of 2025 at Rose Park Plaza here in Billings was filled with a sense of frustration with her landlord.
I would have to go outside like at least 10 times a day because my eyes would start getting they'd burn and it looked like I was crying, my nose would run.
Eldridge, who has mobility issues and a seizure disorder, lives in this Section 8 low-income apartment owned by Capital Realty, a company based in New York State.
You've got to be able to breathe. I mean, you know.
She said a black mold problem in her apartment has made her family sick for over a year, including her adult daughter and her grandchildren, who all share the same unit. Debbie says these photos show examples of the mold, which she says was in nearly every room in her apartment and under her floor. We reached out to Capital Realty and they declined to comment.
This is what they did to get into the rooms.
Debbie says Capital Realty eventually hired professionals to clean up the mess, but those workers made a bigger mess, piling up household items and leaving her family's belongings in disarray.
Then when we found out there was a lot more tenants that were having these problems, and then the 2 people from the tenant union that came around was knocking on doors. They told me what they were doing and they were here to help us, and I was like, I'm all for it because everything I've been going through.
Capital Realty!
Debbie signed up for the Rose Park Tenant Union, an organized group of renters from her apartment complex who formed in September of 2025.
In order to demand that Capital Realty join us at the bargaining table, it is imperative that we remain united.
Sarah Graff is the tenant union president. She said members are demanding new leases from their landlord, hoping to address a laundry list of problems like broken doors, faulty plumbing, and other units with black mold.
This is the first time that tenants have united across state lines to go against a common landlord. There's power in numbers, and we are collecting numbers.
Those numbers are growing in other parts of Montana too. Tenant unions have formed in Bozeman, Missoula, Helena, and the Flathead Valley.
There's nowhere else in this valley that I could afford to raise my family.
Here in Bozeman, renters at King Arthur Trailer Court organized when they heard the property was up for sale. Tenant Union President Timmery Driscoll said folks here are afraid of losing their homes.
People will have to leave the state. People will have to move in with family. People will have to scramble. I don't know where we could possibly go.
Meanwhile, in Missoula, renters at Travoy Village also unionized when their mobile home park was sold. The reason? Monthly rent hikes of more than $150, when most residents here say they're struggling to get by.
This was on top of raising our rent $200 a month last year, altogether attempting to nearly double our rent since they bought the park 2 years ago. And that's not right. That's not right!
Organizer Ben Finnegan is a central figure in Montana's tenant movement. Finnegan helped form the state's first tenant union back in Bozeman in 2022. He's the organizer who knocked on Debbie Eldridge's door.
The biggest source of leverage that tenants have over our landlords is our rent.
Finnegan is talking about what's known as a rent strike, a tactic he said no tenant union in Montana has used so far. Instead, he says it's damage to a landlord's reputation that often gets them to negotiate.
When tenants get together and when we unionize, we have power to really threaten that reputation, to expose when landlords are doing things that aren't right.
In December of 2025, Finnegan decided to apply some of that leverage, traveling with members of the Rose Park Tenants Union in Billings to New York State.
1, 2, 3, 4!
Here, in a strip mall parking lot, tenants from 6 states gathered to protest Capital Realty in the town of Spring Valley, home to its corporate headquarters.
A Capital Realty Group is a bully!
The unions represented here are all part of the National Tenant Union Federation, which describes itself as a union of unions. It aims to organize tenants to wield power at a massive scale to, in part, disrupt the flow of capital to those who commodify our homes.
We the tenants stand and fight!
Those are complex goals, but on this day, tenants' demands were simple. They wanted to meet with the president of the company, Moshe Eichler.
Mr. Eichler! Meet with tenants!
Earlier that day, tenants from Billings confronted Eichler on his way in from the parking lot. Tenant Union President Sarah Graff said his actions spoke louder than words.
Can you please stop with us?
He would not even look at me. He walked kind of parallel to me to the building where he opened the door and then turned around and slammed the door with me standing at the glass.
And then there was a whole group of what we believe to be paid protesters.
Finnegan told us that Capital Realty hired counter-protesters to show up and wave these signs. Signs, he said, falsely accused the tenant unions of being anti-Semitic and targeting Jewish landlords. We asked Capital Realty to clarify where these counter-protesters came from and if they were paid, but the company declined to answer.
The fact that we're getting this level of reaction from them tells us that they're freaked out and they're trying everything they can to intimidate us out of fighting for really basic, dignified living situations.
But the protesters from Billings never got the meeting they requested. Their day ended on a bus, driving back to a hotel. Done, but not defeated, according to Finnegan.
There have been periods where landlords have retaliated really forcefully against tenants and tried to use fear to put them off track. And in all of these situations, tenants have chosen to keep fighting.
We the tenants have had enough! We will no longer be bullied! We will stand together!
Organizers say Montana's tenant unions have staged hundreds of actions over the past 4 years, like this one, where Bozeman tenants joined up with those in Billings to protest the sale of their mobile home park. They say union membership has grown to more than 1,000 tenants statewide, and the fight for tenants' rights is far from over. We reached out to the landlords and property management companies featured in this story, including Capital Realty in New York and Oakland Properties in Billings, which manages the King Arthur Mobile Home Park in Bozeman. Both those companies declined to appear on camera. We did talk to mobile home park owner Gary Oakland via phone, and he told us his family has managed King Arthur Park for over 40 years. He says selling the park is just part of his retirement plan and that tenants are not welcome at the bargaining table.
We have nothing to hide here. This is just business as usual.
This is not mom and pop landlords.
The president of the Montana Landlords Association also declined to be interviewed on camera. John Sinrud represents more than 1,500 Montana landlords and is a lobbyist for the organization. He told us he believes tenants are agitators and their efforts are misguided.
Our homes! Our homes! Our money!
And while the relationship between tenant unions and their landlords is anything but stable, union members have had measurable success in changing local policy in one Montana city.
We as a community need to protect the most vulnerable people of our community from corporations who are trying to take over this town.
Here in Bozeman, union members helped convince the city commission to crack down on short-term rentals, a so-called Airbnb ban, in 2023. And 2 years later, they helped pass what's called Tenants' Right to Counsel, meaning Bozeman will be the first city in Montana to pay attorneys to help its renters fight their landlords in court.
And this is really to help neutralize and sort of even out the playing field when you are in these situations where there's a power imbalance.
You take the place that you can get or you're going to be homeless.
However, renters here in Billings have fewer protections, and Debbie Eldridge says her options are especially limited.
Yeah, I feel stuck because I've got to live here to have a place, in order to have a roof over my head.
She said her rent would more than triple if she moved out of Rose Park and into market rate housing. Debbie said without the tenant union's help, she'd have almost no way to fight for safe, affordable housing and to hold her landlord accountable.
We're hoping to get where we need to get to where we can be treated like we should be treated. I mean, we should feel safe in our home. We should be able to be comfortable and not worry about things.
For Impact, I'm Matt Standel in Billings.